Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today we will talk about the famous American writer Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath, 1930 to 1963. Born in Boston, Massachusetts. Her parents, Otto Plath, a German-born professor of biology and author of the book Bumblebees and Other Ways, 1934, and her mother, Aurelia Schauber Plath, an Austrian-American academic. Her siblings, younger brother, Warren, was born in 1935. She was raised in Winthrop, Massachusetts. Her father's death in 1940, when she was 8, profoundly impacted her, a theme evident in poems like Daddy. She attended Wellesley High School, showcased their exceptional academic and artistic talents. Then she went to Smith College 1950s and 55, graduated summa cum laude with a thesis titled The Magic Mirror, a study of the double in two of Dostoevsky's novels. And she studied at Newham College, Cambridge University, where she continued writing and publishing poetry. She published her first poem at the age of 8, contributed to various magazines, including 17 and The Atlantic. She is married to Ted Hughes, a British poet, and they met in 1956 at Cambridge, and they married the same year. Her children, Frida, born in 1960, and Nicholas, born in 1962. The marriage faced the challenges, including Terry Hughes' affair with the woman Asia Weddell, leading to the separation in 1962. He struggled with depression throughout her life, underwent electroconvulsive therapy in 1953. Then she first attempted suicide in 1953. Subsequent attempts followed. Her final months, despite personal turmoil, she produced some of her most acclaimed work during this period. She died of suicide on February 11, 1963 in London. Now let's analyze the major works. Poetry collection, The Colossus and Other Poems, 1960, her only poetry collection published during her lifetime. Then the Ariel, 1965, posthumously published, includes some of her most famous poems like Lady Lazarus and Daddy. The next book, Crossing the Water, 1971, and Winter Trees, 1971, collections of previously unpublished poems. Then the collected poems appeared in 1981, which won the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1982. And her novel, The Bell Jar, 1963, is a semi-autobiographical novel published under the pseudonym Victoria Lucas. Explores themes of mental illness and societal expectations. Now let's analyze her literary themes and styles. Confessional poetry. Pioneered this genre characterized by personal subject matter and emotional intensity. Recurring themes include mental illness and depression, death and suicide, female identity and societal roles, nature and the self. Notable poems include Daddy, explores complex emotions towards a father and husband. Then the next book, Lady Lazarus, depicts the themes of death and rebirth. The Applicant is a work that critiques societal expectations of women. Then the honors and awards she received: Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1982, awarded posthumously for her The Collected Poems. Then she had secured a Fulbright scholarship in 1955 supported her studies at Cambridge. Now let's analyze the legacy and influence of Sylvia Plath. A literary impact continues to influence poets and writers. Her work is studied for its emotional depth and technical powers. Feminist icon, seen as a symbol of the struggles faced by women in a patriarchal society. Cultural references. Her life and work have inspired numerous biographies, films, and academic studies. Sylvia Plath effect is a term coined to describe the correlation between creativity and mental illness, particularly in poets. Now let's analyze the lesser-known facts about Sylvia Plath. An accomplished visual artist considered a career in art before focusing on writing. Her personal writings provide insight into her thoughts and their creative process. Some were destroyed by her husband Ted Hughes. Many of her works were published after her death, curated by Ted Hughes, leading to debates about editorial choices. Now let's analyze the main works. First one, The Bell Jar, 1963. This semi-autobiographical novel follows the character Esther Greenwood, a bright young woman descending into mental illness while struggling against the suffocating expectations of 1950s society. It critiques the medicalization of women's mental health and the lack of meaningful female autonomy. Esther's story resonates as a psychological and feminist exploration of identity, agency, and disillusionment. The next work, Ariel, 1965. Published posthumously, Ariel contains many of Sylvia Plath's most powerful and visceral poems, such as Daddy, Lady Lazarus, and Ariel itself. These poems explore themes of death, rebirth, anger, female identity, and creative resurrection with a bold imagery and rhythmic intensity. The voice in Ariel shifts from despair to fierce defiance, marking a radical transformation in Sylvia Plath's poetics. The next work, Daddy, from Ariel, is a dramatic and a controversial poem. Daddy is an intense confrontation with the poet's father and a symbolically patriarchal authority. Through Holocaust and vampire imagery, Plath enacts a ritual exorcism of male dominance and inherited trauma. It is both personal and mythic, reflecting themes of grief, rage, and liberation. The next work, Lady Lazarus, from Ariel. This poem dramatizes the speaker's repeated suicide attempts as a performance of resurrection, drawing on the biblical figure of Lazarus. It challenges the voyeuristic fascination with a female suffering and a rebirth, with the speaker reclaiming power through art. The tone is defiant, mocking, and darkly humorous, establishing Plath's confessional voice at its boldest. The next work, The Colossus and Other Poems, 1960. Sylvia Plath's first published poetry collection shows her command of form, myth, and a landscape. Poems like The Colossus, Full Fathom 5, and The Beekeeper's Daughter reveal her early struggles with a loss, language, and the burden of memory. It is more restrained than Ariel, but establishes her obsession with identity, silence, and a familial ghost. The next work, Tulips, in Ariel, a hospital room medication on identity. This poem contrasts the sterile peace of illness with the intrusive vitality of tulips. The flowers become symbolic of life's demands and emotional clutter, disrupting the speaker's desire for detachment. It explores the tension between isolation and the will to live. The next one, The Applicant from Ariel, a satirical poem critiquing the commodification of women and marriage. The speaker interviews a man for a wife as if she were a product, highlighting the dehumanizing forces of consumerism and patriarchal norms. Its mechanical tone underscores the artificiality of traditional gender roles. Next work, Morning Song from Ariel. This poem explores Sylvia Plath's ambivalence towards motherhood, portraying the emotional disconnection that can follow childbirth. The speaker reflects on her infant's cries and her own transformation into a mother. It is a tender yet an unsettling look at maternal alienation and the struggle to form new bonds. The next work, Edge, written in 1963, one of our final poems. Edge presents a chilling image of a woman who has reached a point of called perfection through death. The poem blends beauty and annihilation, showing a woman wrapped in self-control and silence. It is often read as Sylvia Plath's farewell to life and literature. The next work, Fever 103, from Ariel. This hallucinatory poem explores eroticism, spiritual purity, and feminine rage through the metaphor of fever. The speaker oscillates between desire and transcendence, using imagery from Eastern mysticism and Western guilt. It captures Sylvia Plath's fascination with a cleansing through fire and a language. The next work, The Munich Mannequins, from Ariel. This poem critiques the objectification and sterilization of women in modern society, symbolized by lifeless mannequins. It connects beauty, sterility, and a pressures of perfection imposed by fashion and culture. The poem laments the erasure of female identity and creativity. The next poem, The Beekeeper's Daughter, from the Colossus, a symbolic meditation on the father-daughter relationship, using the figure of the beekeeper to suggest their control, order, and mystery. The daughter stands apart, longing for knowledge, yet fearing the authority of her father. It prefigures the poem Daddy and its themes of paternal legacy and separation. The next work, Crossing the Water, posthumous work. The title poem from this posthumous collection symbolizes a transition into the unknown, like death, change, or emotional rebirth. Its haunting tone and minimalist imagery reflect a spiritual journey across darkness. The collection blends stark imagery with a search for clarity. The next work, Ship in Fog, from Ariel, an atmospheric introspective poem that conveys emotional numbness and a loss of direction. The landscape becomes a metaphor for depression, with indistinct shapes reflecting a fractured inner world. It was one of Sylvia Plath's last revisions before her death, and its bleakness is palpable. The next work, Three Women, radio play, 1962. This poetic monologue follows three women, one giving birth, one miscarrying, and one giving a child up for adoption, reflecting on their experiences. The play addresses the complexity of motherhood, fertility, and a female identity. It offers a chorus of voices, giving a fuller, more layered depiction of womanhood. The next work, Johnny Panic and the Bible of Dreams, 1977, posthumous work. a collection of short stories and journalistic writings, including the title story about a typist obsessed with the dreams. These books provide insight into Sylvia Plath's fictional style and recurring themes of madness, repression, and fear. It reveals her ability to explore psychological unease beyond poetry. The next work, Full Fathom 5 in the Colossus. A sea-bound elegy for the father figure filled with Shakespearean and Ossianic allusions, the speaker reveres and fears the absent paternal presence that is unreachable and mythic. It speaks to Sylvia Plath's ongoing struggle with the memory, loss, and the unknowable. The next work, The Night Dances, an Ariel, a poem about her son's sleep moments. The Night Dances blends maternal awe with a cosmic imagery. The gestures are seen as transient and beautiful, but also ultimately lost. It expresses Sylvia Plath's mixture of love and existential melancholy. The next work, Lesbos, an Ariel. This raw, angry poem examines female friendships and domestic entrapment. It represents a claustrophobic household full of tension, competition, and a suppressed violence. Through fierce language, Plath exposes the hidden resentments in female social roles. Next work, Letters Home, 1975. Edited by Aurelia Plath. Not a literary book in the traditional sense, this is a collection of letters Sylvia wrote to her family from college through her final years. It charts her inner life, artistic struggles, and ambition in real time. The contrast between the letter's cheerful tone and the darkness of her poetry deepens the tragic complexity of her life.